How's it going, guys? Coffee here. Today I wanted to cover the full leveling guide for leveling your Icefire Fusion Gemma, which is going to be my league starter and the league starter that I recommend for everyone else, as this build pulls around 18 mil DPS on a under 5 FE budget. First things first, for leveling this build, you are just going to be leveling with Split Firebolt as soon as you get it, which is at the very beginning of the game. For this first boss, you can equip this Frost Wave or Frost Nova thing that you have here. You will get Frigid Transmission as soon as you kill that first Agito boss here at level 3. You will be using Frigid Transmission all the way through the first quest until you kill the first boss. You will be getting the Flame Pillar here right after you accept the Dwarf quest. And pretty much once you have the Flame Pillar, what you're going to want to be doing is always be using your Frigid Transmission first as you go to move, and then following up with Flame Bolts afterwards. As you'll see here, your Frigid Transmission basically will get resets as you are killing things, or as you are freezing things, which allows you to basically quickly get through the leveling experience. You'll see here I have included a full leveling guide here at various steps of the leveling process. I'm going to go over the various builds here on Maxroll, and I'll include these links down below for people to follow along if they want to have them up on a second monitor on launch day. So first things first, for your build, around 21 talent points. This will be around level 16, 17, something like that. Your full tree for Goddess of Knowledge is you're just going to be completing the damage here. You want to take a little bit of the attack speed, and you want to make sure you focus skill radius. Skill radius is important because Frigid Transmission itself, the larger range you have, the more likely you are to end up proccing a frostbite on something in order to get a reset on this, or freezing something in order to get a reset on this. Same goes with Ring of Ice. Because this already has a built-in chance for frostbite as well, this also gives you another chance to freeze to get resets on Frigid Transmission. These both benefit from skill radius a lot. The build already has a lot of damage between Flame Pillar and Frigid Transmission. So you want to make sure you're grabbing those. For your 2 points here, you want to make sure you're grabbing Beacon. And then we are grabbing Burning Touch for our 20-point skill here. This is going to be giving us 40% additional damage because of Gemma, and this is just another 25% additional damage. As you can see here, we are basically just grabbing a little bit of cold damage, and then we're going to be grabbing Frostbite Chance. This is important while you're leveling up, especially because you only get one Freeze Chance support gem, and you don't get the second one until you hit level 55. So it's important to pick up Frostbite Chance along the way. And then this gives us focus blessings upon freezing something, which we're constantly doing, and then we're just picking up the +1 spell skill level. So the next one we have here is going to be about 39 points here. So the 39-point version of Gemma here. You'll see we fully completed. We're still basically on the same 21 points that we were before. For the links now, these are when you start to get to about a couple of 3 links. You will pick up Ice Imbue around level 14. And you will be getting Elemental Amplification around level 24 or something like that. First thing you want to be doing again, once you get to a 3 link for Frigid Transmission, you're just putting Added Cold on it. And for your Ring of Ice, you're adding Control Spell and Added Cold. Control Spell will be a quest reward. Ensure that you are taking that. For Compound Potion, you're still just using Emergency Rescue. You will take Blurry Steps around level 11. And this will give you, you'll want to put cooldown reduction on this once you unlock that. And you're just going to be running Added Cold on that as well. For these, you're just going to be taking the Max Fusion Energy and the Ice Fire Radiance. Let's go ahead and move on to what we have for the next one here. As you get yourself up to 57 points. So this will be pushing towards the later half of the campaign itself. At this point, you will have had multiple opportunities at getting the black gold that you can use in order to reset the black market or the black market trader. Pretty much for this, you're just digging for spring resurrections. In my leveling test, I was able to get 2 of them, as well as get my Synfire boots. I'm not going to put Synfire boots in here because those are a drop and you're unlikely to basically be able to replicate that. But Spring Resurrection pops up very, very commonly on the NPC, so there's a good chance that you'll be able to get 1 or more of those. For your 4 links, at this point, you will have basically canceled out the points that you are getting in Spirit Caller. As soon as you're able to pick up Warlock, you want to end up picking this up. You will end up wanting to swap to Warlock basically as soon as you unlock this at level 40. You should be able to swap this over and put 18 points in order to get this +1 max energy charges here on the tree. By getting this, it will give you an additional charge on all of your skills, which really increases movement speed by having multiple stacks on Blurry Steps and multiple stacks on Frigid Transmission. So as soon as you hit level 40 and unlock this 3rd tree, I recommend removing all points in Spirit Caller, putting all the points into Warlock, and ensuring you get to this medium talent tree here. And then once you get through that, so your first 18 are basically going to be the same. Everything over here, nothing will change for the most part. And then you're going to end up getting this over here. And then for finishing out the tree, you're going to basically end up doing this. You're just going to be taking the +1 to all skill levels, and then the 100% chance to get Blur on defeat. And then for your major talents, you're picking up Merciless, which is going to give you cooldown reduction on your Frigid Transmission, and then Dirty Tricks, which is going to give you guaranteed ailment on every single hit, which is important to get resets on Frigid Transmission and to basically constantly freeze things as much as possible. As well as you'll see there's a lot of additional damage on hit for this. This is why you'll see on your Frigid Transmission at this point you will end up wanting to swap to running added fire and added erosion damage on your necklace, because you need this base wilt damage and this base ignite damage. This is important to basically guarantee that with Dirty Tricks you're getting your guaranteed frostbite, you're getting your guaranteed ignite, and you're getting your guaranteed wilt. For this, if you do end up finding a necklace, you really want to be looking for a necklace that either has bleed on it. It doesn't really matter what the necklace is. It can literally just be anything. Let's just put in, you're most likely going to have a random necklace. You are looking for a necklace that has either bleed or shock on it. Bleed being the most important if you can find it. Shock being the second if you can't find anything with bleed on it. Alternatively, if you end up finding a necklace that has like bleed and wilt, for example, then that gives you the opportunity to swap out added erosion for a different support gem. Some other things that you can consider that are good are periodic burst and then blind, depending on if you care about survivability or if you are just trying to make sure you're pumping out more damage. At this point, again, you're just adding Cold Pen as your 4th skill, and then nothing changes on the passives yet. On the next step here, around, what is this, 75 points. This will be level 70. This will be slightly after you finish the campaign, or 71 points here. They're like level 80, or not level 80. This will be around level 65 or so, shortly after you finish the campaign. At this point, you will be able to have a setup for a Curse on Hit. And you want a Curse on Hit Elemental Destruction with a seal conversion here. So this is going to be using life. For your passives, you will, if you do not have a Spring Resurrection, is where you will end up having to use Magical Source. If you have a Spring Resurrection, then you'll be able to get away with not having to use this. At this point, you will be able to run a Frigid Domain plus Elemental Amplification. And then for your last thing here, you can be running a Death Pact. First things I would recommend would be Soul Eating Circle. You should have the points to basically do this off of certain things. If you end up needing to remove points, then I recommend just taking points again out of like Flame Pillar or out of Blurry Steps. Try to keep the things that you have in your damage, and then take out the supports in these other three things if you end up basically short on points, for example. And nope, I gotta make sure I add these. I forgot to add them here. Let's move on here. So this will be about like when you're first hitting the campaign. You'll start to get a little bit of gear that has some energy on it. You should be able to get yourself up to a decent amount of energy pretty quickly from here. And then you will get yourself up to, this is about level 70 here. This is where we're going to basically say at this point you should be able to get your energy up to about 200 or so, somewhere around there. And this is where, again, we're going to do the same thing. You'll be on a Death Pact setup with Soul Eating Circle, with Fixate, and then you will be on a Curse on Hit here with Elemental Destruction, and then on a on Seal Conversion. So this is using life. This is about 200 points. At this point, at level 70, this is exactly when you are able to get your third tree at level 18 or at 18 points. This is the exact point at which you want to be swapping to using your lightning skills. I do not recommend swapping to these any earlier than that. I would just stick with Ring of Ice until you hit level 70 or get your 18 points in this, depending on how quickly you're pushing through the campaign. At this point is when you get Translucent, which is going to give you a lot of extra damage, basically based on your lightning damage and other things like that. The next big power spike you're going to get for your lightning damage at this point will come at level 80, because Extreme Fusion basically triples your damage at that point. The first unique that I do recommend you buy, or the first unique that you are working towards with your first FE that you get, is you do want to buy a pair of Marksman's Bracers. These are going to really increase your clear speed by a ton. It just increases the range at which your Thundercloud is hitting things, and just increases how quickly it's clearing things. If you're short on points here still, again, just drop the 5th link on your damage, or, depending on where the breakpoints are, you can always drop something off of, drop these 3rd links on Compound Potion or Blurry Steps. And then same goes for Frigid Transmission. You could always drop Freeze Chance if you need to. As this is one of those things that it's not as important to have it once you have your points and Dirty Tricks. This is just additional damage, but if you need to drop the damage in order to basically fit extra damage on your Sparkle for bosses, then you can do that. So let's go ahead and save this here. At this point, basically you should be having focused the Glacier region. Specifically, that is the area that I recommend farming, especially because we need a drop from the boss for this build. Somewhere between level 70 and 80, you should have been able to get yourself a Glacier Caster Shield as a drop from the boss on one of the tiers. You should have been able to get at least one other FE since then in order to buy your second unique, which you should be able to buy Boots of Sinfire. You can probably end up finding these for Flame Sand early on as well, just because they're very common drops and they start dropping very early in the campaign. Though if you do want to get them, with an actual amount of energy that you can upgrade to the final amount, then you will end up using, probably most likely having to spend 1 FE in order to do that. So from here, your tree is just continuing to expand out in Spirit Caller. This is just pushing yourself to getting the +1 to all lightning skills, and then you are trying to finish out the max channeled stacks right at level 81. You won't get to do this until you hit level 81, but that will be what you'll be doing. The recommended setup with this, with Sparkle and Thundercloud, is Sparkle pretty much doesn't get used through mapping. It's just there for the bosses. But Frigid Transmission and Thundercloud are carrying the entire mapping experience. And let's go ahead and showcase that right now so you can get a little bit of a feel for it. Alright, so this is a showcase right here of the DPS at level 80 with this build. And I will go ahead and showcase the gear and the skill tree that I was using for this test. This is just a couple FE and gear that you would end up having to purchase. Outside of that, basically everything else is just going to be self-found pretty easily by this point at level 80. You'll see here the average DPS is about 10 mil or so, with spikes up to 16 mil. When you end up proccing your periodic burst with your Sparkle, you end up basically getting a nice trigger on the boss. But this is more than enough to do basically all the content, even through T7 at this point for the most part. Traveler might give you a little bit difficulty on T7, but it just means you're going to have to play a little bit cleaner. But you don't really need to focus on doing Traveler until you gear up a little bit more. So it's not really a big deal. You can just wait until you get about 10 FE in gear, and then you'll be sitting at about 100 mil DPS without any issues. So as you can see here, this is the exact same tree that we were just going over in Maxroll here. This is merely just showcasing these things as proof that, the things that I'm saying are in fact true, and I'm not trying to mislead anyone. Same thing goes here. You can see I don't have any hero relics or any hero memories equipped that are going to be doing anything special. As you can see for the gear here, this is just a various gear that I found in T6 with just high energy, a little tiny bit of crafting on them. The rings that I'm using were basically just junk that I grabbed while leveling. And then the Spring Resurrection and the Glacier Caster Shield are just same drops as well. Alright, and as you can see here, this is a T6 Demiman Village. This is the map that I do recommend for everyone. It is the best map in the game. And pretty much the only time you should really be running something else is if you're either completing your quests, or if you end up finding a map that is either giving bonus EXP or something with like either a guaranteed FE drop or benevolent, basically, so a high chance at FE. Outside of that, pretty much cycling this map as quickly as possible to just get your cards and get a lot of EXP early on. It's going to be your best bet for the first few days until you unlock all of your cards. As you can see here, you're pretty much just channeling up your Thundercloud a little bit, and then you're just spamming Frigid Transmission, getting constant resets on everything in order to quickly zoom yourself through the map. And then when we get up here to the boss is when we basically just start spamming Sparkle on top of the Frigid Transmission damage, which is going to quickly melt the boss. And then we just move on and we repeat yet again. Alright, so let's go ahead and move back into the Maxroll. And last but not least, when you get to somewhere as you're trying to push towards level 90, this will be your 97 point build. This is probably, I would say you're not completely done with your gear, but you're going to be somewhere in between this. The other unique items that you're going to be basically purchasing along the way are going to be an Elemental Envoy and a cluster of Dark Clouds. Basically, the Spring Resurrection, Elemental Envoy, Cluster of Dark Clouds, Boots of Sinfire, and the Marksman Bracers are the 5 FE that I consider that most people will end up having to spend in order to buy. The Glacier Caster Shield, it's so common from the Glacier boss that you should be able to farm one of those yourself on the first day of play without many issues. So this is going to be your build here for about 300 energy or so. So when your gear is probably not fully complete yet, depending on where your energy is, you can just drop this 5th tier off of anything. The least important out of all of these is going to be the one for frigid transmission. You can, again, you do not need this last freeze chance anytime soon. It is just additional damage, but again, if you don't have the energy for it, just drop it. Thundercloud is carrying the majority of the mapping damage, and then Sparkle is carrying the boss damage. So Sparkle would be the first thing that you want to take to a 5-link, followed by your Thundercloud, and then by your frigid transmission. For your gear here, this is where you do just want to start basically trying to craft a necklace that is going to have some bleed chance on it, as that's going to be basically 7% increased damage for the build. And then again, as you start to get FE drops, you want to purchase an Elemental Envoy and a Cluster of Dark Clouds. You'll see once you do get your Cluster of Dark Clouds here, this gives you an additional or a different source of focus blessings. So at this point, you can drop the points that you have in the tree here that we were picking up just to get focus blessings, and we can swap these over to sealed mana. This will free up extra mana for the tree at this point, and this is where we can start to think about adding an additional skill here. We may end up using the new sentry skill that is coming, either the frost or the lightning one. We're just going to have to test it out once the new league releases, and I will update this guide after the first day with my recommendations after testing it. You'll see here we end up pushing to 38 points in this second tree as well. We end up finishing out this one here that is going to give us tenacity and agility blessings, where we receive a ton of focus blessings with this build, so you'll always have maximum blessings on this, with 38 points in this, and you're still on the 36 points in Warlock. After you have gotten to this point, the last step is basically just finishing out the entire gear. So let's go ahead and show the setup here with basically your maximum energy gear. You will see that this is more energy than what you can actually get, but basically you will end up swapping a 6-link Thundercloud or a 6-link Sparkle depending on what content you're doing. If you're just spamming maps where you don't need the 6-link and Sparkle, or you don't need the 6-link and Thundercloud, you can just leave this Thundercloud on a 5-link, Sparkle on a 6-link, and then you should be able to just blast all the content this way. Same goes with the frigid transmission. You'll see here basically this is more so for movement rather than damage at this point. So you can basically swap this to a cooldown reduction setup, adding a blind gem in here just for some additional defenses. And then either added fire or added erosion depending on what you have on your necklace. If you get ignite on there, then you don't need to run the added fire. If you get wilt on there, then you don't need to run the added erosion. It will really depend on the gear you get. Same with your death pack setup here. Mana Boil you can only start running as soon as you get your Glacier Caster Shield. If you do not have this, then you will not have the mana to be able to support Mana Boil. So I wouldn't recommend using this. I would just use Soul Eating Circle and Fixate before then. Magical Source is something, again, you're not going to end up needing. If you do not, or if you are using the Glacier Caster Shield, you'll be able to get away with not having to use it yourself. Yeah, so from here you'll see again just the same thing. Blurry Steps, we're just adding Mass Effect, Extended Duration. For the Compound Potion, we've added an Armor Infusion for some extra defenses, and then we have Residues and Emergency Restoration. If you do end up getting a little bit of extra stuff, or you don't need the healing as much, you can always drop the Emergency Restoration for Berserk instead. The build doesn't really need the damage that much, so it's not that important to do, but it allows the option there for people who have the personal preference. And then additionally, you'll see that as we finish the Spirit Caller tree, we are using Peculiar Vibe, which is just a little bit extra damage. Yeah, other than that, from here, if you are going to push this into the expensive version of Gemma here, This is the closer to end game version that I was running last league. At this point, at some point you will basically want to end up upgrading your shield to a mistaken authority, and then you will end up upgrading your wand to either a +2 or a +4 wand. This is again taking the build from like a 5 to 10 FE build to a 200 plus FE build. I don't really think that's necessary for most people, as this build kind of really specializes in just chain farming T7 maps or as quickly as possible, and you can do that on that 5 or 10 FE budget. So unless you're really trying to push this as a single build and do extra additional content with it, then I'd recommend you don't really need to spend the extra money. You can just get away with using this to make the money and then basically build yourself a different character or something new to actually do the other content of the game for bossing, other things like that. Because while this build is capable of getting itself up there to about 1 billion or so damage, the amount of investment required to do so starts to add up to where there are better options out there for the money you can spend. And, if you're trying to play something else that's a little bit more fun, if you played this last league, then, you can always just save the money and spend it elsewhere. My plan personally is I will probably push maybe up to about 30 FE into the build. I will probably end up getting a Hekate's Vision on top of just the uniques that we have from the 5 or 10 FE version. And then maybe a Restless Glacier if these are inexpensive, but I don't know if they will be. And that's about it. Outside of that, everything else will just stay extremely cheap, and then I'll just be saving to fund for my next build. So, other than that, if you have any questions about the build, feel free to leave them here, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. I will include the links for all of these Maxroll builds in the description down below. If you have any questions, then again, let me know, and I will be streaming my league start on Twitch at CoffeeBNS, so I will leave that link in the description below. If you end up having any questions on launch day, then swing by and let me know. Have a good one. See you in the next one.